YouTube's recommendation algorithm is one of the most sophisticated and influential pieces of technology in modern media, yet few users truly understand how it shapes their worldview. What begins as innocent curiosity about politics, fitness, or self-improvement can, over time, funnel viewers towards increasingly extreme content. This isn't accidental. It's the inevitable result of an AI designed to maximize watch time by feeding users progressively more sensational, emotionally charged material. Today we'll explore 20 unsettling ways YouTube's recommendation system quietly nudges viewers toward radical ideologies, conspiracy theories, and polarized thinking, often without them even realizing it. YouTube's algorithm prioritizes one metric above all else, keeping you watching. Content that triggers strong emotional reactions, anger, fear, outrage, generates longer watch times and more frequent returns to the platform. As a result, the AI naturally favors divisive, hyperbolic, and controversial material over nuanced, balanced perspectives. A viewer who starts with moderate political commentary may soon find recommendations skewing towards partisan rants, then full-blown conspiracy theories, each step slightly more extreme than the last, but just familiar enough to feel like a natural progression. YouTube's autoplay and up next features create a passive radicalization pipeline. A user watching a video questioning mainstream news might be recommended a follow-up accusing media of outright corruption. Click that and soon the algorithm suggests content alleging systemic censorship. Before long, the viewer is consuming full-fledged deep-state conspiracy theories, all because each incremental step felt like a small logical jump. Research shows most users don't actively seek extremism. They simply follow YouTube's curated path of least resistance. Viewers often believe they're making independent decisions, unaware how the algorithm limits their options. YouTube doesn't show all possible related videos. It promotes ones most likely to extend your session. If you watch one anti-vaccine video, the AI won't balance recommendations with pro-science content. It will prioritize similar contrarian material. This creates a false sense of consensus, making fringe views appear mainstream. Users radicalized this way often insist they did their own research, not realizing their research was handpicked by an AI optimizing for outrage. Anger is YouTube's most profitable emotion. Studies reveal that content eliciting indignation receives higher engagement and thus gets amplified by the algorithm. This creates a self-reinforcing cycle. The angrier the content, the more it's recommended. The more it's recommended, the angrier the audience becomes. Over time, viewers' thresholds for outrage lower, requiring ever more extreme material to elicit the same reaction. Political moderates who initially chuckled at partisan memes can, within months, find themselves enraged by apocalyptic rhetoric they once would have dismissed as absurd. YouTube often presents opposing extremist views, as if they were equal to mainstream consensus. A climate change documentary might be balanced in recommendations with a denialist rant, framing scientific fact as mere opinion. This false equivalence disproportionately boosts fringe perspectives, granting them undeserved credibility. Research shows users who consume even small amounts of anti-establishment content soon receive recommendations dominated by such material, effectively pushing them toward ideological fringes under the guise of neutrality. No two users see the same YouTube homepage. The algorithm customizes recommendations based on watch history, creating unique ideological bubbles. A progressive and conservative watching the same neutral news clip will quickly diverge into opposing recommendation spirals, one toward social justice content, the other toward anti-woke commentary. This hyper-personalization ensures users rarely encounter challenging viewpoints, reinforcing existing biases and making moderate positions seem invisible. Over time, viewers assume their curated feed represents objective reality. Extremist creators have reverse-engineered the algorithm's preferences. They deliberately title videos with escalating provocations, like "The truth about X" to "Why X is destroying America" to "How to fight back against X," to hook viewers into radicalization sequences. Thumbnails feature increasingly alarmed facial expressions and bold red text. This deliberate gamification of outrage exploits the AI's preference for emotional escalation, turning ideological radicalization into a predictable technical process. YouTube often introduces extremism through seemingly harmless gateways. A video about natural health might lead to anti-pharma content, then to anti-vaccine rhetoric, then to full medical conspiracy theories. Fitness channels morph into anti-feminist men's rights content. Gaming commentators pivot to political rants. These thematic bridges allow radical ideologies to infiltrate communities where users would never actively seek them, disguised as logical extensions of existing interests. The algorithm doesn't just respond to user behavior, it actively shapes it. Experiments show that accounts exposed to right-wing recommendations develop more conservative viewing habits, while those given left-wing suggestions trend progressive. This proves the AI doesn't merely reflect preferences, it manufactures them. Users believe they're following organic interests, unaware how the algorithm narrows their options toward ever more polarized content. Once YouTube identifies conspiracy-curious tendencies, it floods recommendations with interconnected fringe theories. A 9/11 truth video leads to anti-government content, which leads to QAnon material, which leads to apocalyptic prepper channels. The algorithm recognizes that conspiracy audiences exhibit high engagement, so it actively nurtures this mindset. Viewers develop pattern recognition that sees hidden plots everywhere, not because they're unreasonable, but because the AI has trained them to interpret reality this way. Controversy drives revenue. YouTube's partner program incentivizes creators to produce increasingly sensational content to maintain ad income. Moderates struggle to compete with radicals whose outrage-driven videos garner more clicks. This financial pressure pushes creators toward extremism, a phenomenon seen in real time as formally balanced channels adopt increasingly extreme positions to satisfy the algorithm's appetite for conflict. When users see radical videos with millions of views, they assume these ideas must be credible. The algorithm's promotion of inflammatory content creates false perceptions of popularity, making fringe beliefs appear widespread. A viewer questioning flat Earth theory might reconsider when YouTube surfaces multiple documentaries with tens of millions of collective views, not realizing the AI promoted them precisely because they sparked such intense debate. Radical content offers simplistic answers to complex issues, an appealing contrast to nuanced, uncertain mainstream perspectives. The algorithm learns that viewers seeking definitive explanations like the real reason for X watch longer than those exploring balanced debates. Over time, it steers users toward authoritarian-style content that provides absolute answers, training them to reject ambiguity and value ideological rigidity. Research confirms YouTube disproportionately recommends far-right content over far-left equivalents. This bias stems from the far-right's reliance on emotionally charged oppositional rhetoric that triggers high engagement. Even apolitical users browsing history or fitness content eventually receive recommendations for anti-immigrant or white nationalist material if they engage with any adjacent controversial topics. Radicalization thrives in environments devoid of counterarguments. YouTube's recommendation bubbles rarely expose viewers to fact-checks or opposing perspectives unless specifically sought. Over time, users lose the ability to critically evaluate information, having been immersed in ideologically pure content streams where their assumptions go unchallenged. This intellectual isolation is a hallmark of cult indoctrination, and YouTube replicates it at scale. The algorithm identifies and targets vulnerable viewers. Someone searching for loneliness or unemployment may receive recommendations for extremist communities, offering simple explanations for their struggles, like "immigrants stole your job." These groups provide belonging and purpose, needs the algorithm recognizes and exploits by funneling distressed users toward radicalization pathways disguised as support networks. As viewers progress through recommendation chains, extreme rhetoric becomes baseline. Comments sections reinforce this as the algorithm prioritizes divisive replies that spark arguments. Gradually, once shocking ideas feel commonplace, while moderate positions seem weak or like sheeple thinking. This normalization effect explains how ordinary people eventually espouse beliefs they would have previously found abhorrent. By the time users encounter fact checks, they've been algorithmically primed to distrust mainstream sources. Videos debunking conspiracy theories often appear in recommendations too late, after viewers have consumed hours of anti-establishment content, teaching them to dismiss such corrections as censorship or propaganda. This creates near-impervious ideological silos. Combating algorithmic radicalization requires conscious effort, disabling autoplay, diversifying subscriptions, using incognito mode to break filter bubbles, and seeking primary sources over commentary. Platforms must prioritize ethical AI over engagement metrics, but until then, users must recognize how their viewing habits are being manipulated. The first step to escaping the radicalization maze is realizing you're in one.